technology had sufficiently progressed to reveal that mankind and the Earth he inhabited was not actually the center of the universe.
So, troubles in Northern Ireland, I'm afraid, though perhaps those that Ireland isn't usually historically associated with. It's a different flavour of trouble, unfortunately.
I can't help but notice that the theme of the podcast today is the echoes of history coming back to haunt us.
Yeah, it seems to be. And I suppose that's quite relevant because a lot like it's really coming down to a question of land disputes, isn't it? And who has a right to which particular territory. And I would like to suggest, admittedly, controversially, that perhaps the Irish have a right to Ireland. Now, I know this might seem a controversial take.
Well, it's radical.
It is, and the reason it's become so radical, as you know, highlight in your new documentary, The Death of Man, is the enlightenment story of the rationalization of the world and the way that it's equalized and erodes any particularisms that mean that certain places belong to certain people, and to eradicate the categories that basically make genuine human diversity in the world actually worth it. So,
or even possible. I mean, the very notion of the Enlightenment is the atomized individual who exists prior to their existence within a group. And so really what liberalism and the Enlightenment as a whole is trying to do is liberate us from all of these unchosen obligations. So we are essentially just pre-social individuals that just exist without forming into groups. And it's like, okay, but that's crazy and not true. That was never the case. We've never existed.
We're an atom, but we just don't form into anything else.
Exactly.
Right.
That's it. And that's what liberalism...
Maybe we just float around and just bounce off one another, but that's certainly what the liberalist idea is, that individuality of singleness. And I also look, it's easy to control. If you don't have any bonds to society, if you don't have bonds to a country, if you don't have bonds to your family, then the biggest atom with
who you rely
its way of sledgehammering over you is able to control you.
I mean, Rousseau expressly said that people should be maximally dependent on the state. But the point is, in this documentary, I'm pointing out that there are actually some logical consequences of that are pretty negative, actually. And we end up in a completely materialistic world in which nothing is special and nothing is sacred, and that's not good.
No, not at all.
You know, for the Enlightenment was the knife we drew across God's throat.
So if you're interested in seeing how we got there, how the Enlightenment has brought us to this point, go and check out Carl's wonderful documentary.
I'm making quite a strong claim there, I appreciate it. I think I back it up in the documentary. So
let's assess how we got where we got with the recent riots that we saw across Northern Ireland these past few days. Because
sorry, just a quick thing. I've only been following this tangentially. It's been, 2 or 3 days of actual rioting?
There were 2 days of rioting. 2 days of rioting.
It's day 4 as well now. I think we're on day 4 today, just a little bit at the same time as California went off.
The original event...
Not that I'm linking the two together in a suspicious way.
No, although there are... I'll get to it. So one of the interesting things... So this, in answer to your question, Stephen, this all really kicked off on Saturday.
Right.
This kicked off on Saturday because there was news that a local 13-year-old girl there was an attempted rape by 2 14-year-old boys, right? And this is, just for a bit of background, on Ballymena, the town that this happened in. It's the 7th largest town in Northern Ireland, but as we know, Northern Ireland doesn't have a particularly high population. There's just
1.6 million.
2 million, 1.9. Oh, wow. And this town in particular only has about 30,000 people living in it. So it's a very small place in the grand scheme of things. And one of the also interesting things is the fact that the town itself is actually 96% ethnically Irish. Okay?
Or is it Northern Irish? Right.
Northern Irish, yes. Yep. Okay. So it's... So what we had here with this, these 2 boys were brought in, and their case was assessed. And one of the telling things was that they required Romanian interpreters.
Oh, did they?
In order to process, in order to deny the allegations. So that speaks to just what we're dealing with here. So, some just general information about, because even though Ballymena is 96% Irish,
One particular street is.
it just so happens to be this place of, yes, Clonavon Terrace.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you've got, so 57% were not born in either the island of Ireland or Great Britain. 64% were of a foreign background. And 60% of Harveyville primary school students don't speak English as a first language.
So it's a very small colony they have living among them.
It is. So I go to here, yeah, as I say, 94% white overall. And this here, though, is
You go
interesting.
back. So they're mainly, you talk about the Irish, so these are mainly Catholics. So these would have been the kind of pro unification of Ireland and, let's say, friends with the other Sinn Féin type supporters. Is that how they also vote?
Well, I've...
No, it looks like it's going to be majority Protestant raised.
Oh, is it?
So you've
the
got,
religion on the right.
yeah, you've got about 50% sort of Protestant or no religion.
Okay.
So yeah, it's still majority Northern Irish, Anglo-Irish, I guess we call them. I'm not sure.
But it's also interesting, isn't it, to just assess the past few years of Irish history and how we saw recently, didn't we, the fact that Irish Catholics and Protestants banding together in the face of mass immigration.
Well, that was
Perhaps
my
we're
point.
more alike than we previously
Yes.
thought. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Just driving towards is where we're getting to on this.
Absolutely. And one thing that I also just wanted to bring up as regards to the census was the fact that of those who are foreign born, 52% of them arrived in the past 15 years. Yeah. Right? So even though Northern Ireland, generally speaking, has until now been relatively more protected from mass immigration than other parts of the United Kingdom, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's always coming. It's always on the horizon. So,
Yeah, so I just want to pause on that because there are a lot of people who I bet are watching this who are in some nice little village somewhere in Devon or somewhere in the northeast, maybe Northern Ireland, who are just thinking, well, these are problems that are a long way away from me. We haven't got a diversified thing yet. We've only got 2 Indian restaurants and a Turkish barbers. What's the problem? Yeah, this is the signs.
Yes.
This is the beginning of your diversification. It is coming. It is spreading out. They're going to get the entire country. And nowhere is going to be safe.
the fires of Isengard will spread.
Precisely.
Yes.
Precisely.
So, off the back of this attempted rape that these two boys have been charged with, obviously the locals of the town wanted to obviously come out in defiance against this, what is slowly becoming an enclave, right, against the rest of the community. And you can see here, as David points out, these locals organising on Facebook. And trying to hold the, so pardon me, 7:30. And from there, this is where, it starts out and you can tell that tensions are very, very high. And ultimately, some rash, warm-blooded actors are obviously going to demand personal vigilante justice for this. And obviously the reason for this is because, even though the demographics of this particular town might be relatively homogenous, they're not blind to what goes on in other places. No. They've seen Southport. They've seen Dublin. They know what happens. They know, as you were saying,
They've seen Rotherham.
They know where this leads, right? And so, even though I'm obviously not condoning mass violence and all these sorts of things, you can understand why people, when the state takes justice away from them, and you can no longer go to the state for justice, why people will inevitably take matters into their own hands.
The Liberals are going to argue, aren't they, very clearly, oh no, we are doing justice, we've took them in, we've given them, we're questioning them, you've not gone through the court system yet, just as they did with Southport, and by the way, this is just a bunch of far-rightists who are trying to cause trouble on immigration, and I've always said, they'll be very, very careful about who's actually starting these riots. It goes back to when I was at the Moss Side riots and I saw them as a boy, that it was actually very posh students dealing with the Molotov cocktails trying to hand it to us to throw. How do we know that this is not state-backed organisation or leftist Antifa trying to do this so that they can give a bad name, just as they did in Southport?
Right. Well, exactly.
In my view,
Well, no, it's a genuine concern. It's a genuine concern, and we know from the way that the British state deals with these sorts of things.
That's exactly where we're getting to.
They will absolutely manipulate events in order to create the outcome that they want, which will justify more crackdown, more power, and more disenfranchisement of the working people.
This is the real question of justice. The individual case, as bad as it obviously is not the justice that is being denied. The justice that is being denied is the ability to have a safe and harmonious community in which you don't have to worry about your daughters being raped by foreigners.
Absolutely.
That's the justice that's being denied. That's, people don't articulate it that way, but that's what's really driving this.
And I've just got a video here because it goes through the day quite succinctly. So we'll just watch this for a second.
So one thing I just want to emphasize, you can't talk over it. If the noise is on, you just can't hear it. But so what's going on here?
Well, this is so you can see here that there's a vigil, there's a mass gathering, and then the police move in. Now, obviously, there's fire.
What's on fire there?
Bins, garbage, anything flammable. There were bricks being hurled at police cars. There were Molotovs being thrown, and there does seem to have been quite a deal of violence. Over some 15 people were arrested, and almost just as many policemen were injured over the past few days. So it was.
The consequence. What was the size of the town again?
30,000-ish.
30,000, and now I've already just counted 9 militarized kind of army-style police vans with batons and all the rest of it for a street of 30,000 going down one street. This to me looks like the state overreach on this. Where is the reach out to the community leaders from the state in this particular one? Where's the sit down, the pal that would come along as if they were, in Pakistani organizations angry as they did in there? I don't see any of that. What I do see straight away is the heavy-handedness of the police going in on this particular issue when it's the reverse of what we're seeing in California.
I mean, the appropriate response would be to say, yep, we appreciate this is something that a foreign community has done to your community. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make mandatory everyone in that foreign community, 1, learn English, and 2, sit down and explain to them how they have to behave.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to make sure that they have to do like a 3-week course or something. Everyone in this community has to sit down, learn English, do this 3-week course, and then we'll see. Because what that shows is that it's the majority community dictating to the minority community how they have to live alongside them. So the people can feel, oh no, we are the people in control of this. We are going to get this overall underpinning justice of, we will be the ones taken care of by our own country. Right, and instead, like you say, in Britain, it goes the other way. It's always the other way. So
no, not at all. The minorities are treated with kid gloves, and the working classes get the water cannons.
Yeah.
Question on this. What is the community? Is it just a Roma community? Is it Romanian? So we can't argue this time it's about Islam.
No,
it's just about the nature of that community coming in. So when they're talking about far right, aren't they going to be arguing it's white to white?
Well, I mean, technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just anti-foreign, isn't it?
So it's an extension of the argument.
It's about ethnicity and nationality.
Yeah.
Stephen, xenophobia is xenophobia. And we disavow xenophobia of all colours in all forms.
Yeah.
So, things got really, really hairy out there. And what's more, from there, as I say, these were arrests over one day, 6 arrests on the second night in Ballymena. And so then, of course, you have the reaction to all of this from the state itself after the carnage is all done with. So this was, the police in Northern Ireland, and if I could get the mouse, there we go. I'll just play 20 seconds.
Last night saw significant
Just turn it up, Samson, please.
in Ballymena. This violence was clearly racially motivated and targeted at our minority ethnic community and the police. It was racist thuggery, pure and simply, and any attempt to justify or explain it as something else is misplaced.
Right. So we're not going to listen to you. You are the bad people, and the minorities, of whom some of the, again, a very small community, and yet 2 of them are now accused of being rapists. They're the ones we're going to protect in the face of their predation on you. Unbelievable. Completely the wrong way to calm all this down. No wonder people are pissed off. Again, this is the state setting its face against you.
And the Police Federation for Northern Ireland said that the attack on police officers was totally mindless, unacceptable, and feral. Mindless. Totally divorcing this from any sense of context.
Yeah, as if something didn't happen.
Yes.
I mean, this is some bland, boring, dull character sitting in the PR department of the police saying, here is the template that I'm just going to put in for absolutely everything, to be honest. And I wouldn't care which political party individual it was, I'm going to say the same. Yeah.
And also, it comes down to that thing that, okay, well, yes, so there have been these 2 rapes, and they're attempted rapes, and they're absolutely terrible. And the people of this town should never have had to contemplate that thing happening in the first place. And it wouldn't have happened were it not for some engineering of forcing minority groups.
Government policy.
Yeah, government policy.
This is a product of government policy.
And it also goes totally in line with things like this. Asylum accommodation costs rise to 400 million in Northern Ireland.
You've got to pay for the privilege.
All these things fuse together to create this tension that will eventually boil over. When the state throws so much antagonistic energies, all of their dedicated energies, towards making Ireland a horrible place for the Irish.
I mean, diverse.
Yeah, diverse for the Irish. Yeah. Then these things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And the authorities have no way of diffusing the tension because they refuse to admit to a single mistake. They refuse to identify the fact that diversity is a weakness, that it brings crime and distrust. Yeah.
They refuse to discipline the community that is responsible for the attack.
Yes.
And they're instead trying to discipline the Northern Irish community.
I couldn't agree more with it.
It's unacceptable.
It's victim blaming once more.
It is, yeah. It's victim blaming.
It is. I found this one sensible opinion amongst it all, though, from a Timothy Gaston.
Maybe the Irish people aren't the problem when a bunch of Romanian kids try to rape an Irish girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
It says, some in the House may not want to hear it, but you cannot say that you have not been warned. There is a deep concern in parts of Ballymena about the significant demographic change in recent years, particularly due to the resettlement of Roma families, with their often having arrived in large numbers from the Republic of Ireland. And so, yes, it's a tale that we just see happening in more and more remote places now. And ultimately, as I say, even though Northern Ireland has been relatively protected from this for quite a long time, it is coming. There will be more Ballymenas, and there seems no sign on the horizon, really, that the British state is going to pivot and do address any of the concerns that led to this in the first place.
Yeah, and I think there's also another attack line that the people of Ballymena and people of towns across the country, and here they're fairly relatively contained in a certain area. So what needs to happen is to be able to find out who owns the houses. It's quite easy to find that out on the land registry. And if it's a company that owns the houses, like Serco or whoever the Irish equivalent is that's dealing with it, find out who owns that house and target them. Target them with peaceful demonstrations, target them with emails, and find out who the individuals in those companies are, find out what the shareholders are, and make complaints to each of them, all of them lawfully. I'm not saying in any way, shape or form. And just make sure, MI5, as you're listening to this, I am not advocating any violence at all, because I know you want to arrest us in any way you can. So just do so and then find a way, another way of campaigning, because that's exactly how the left would do it.
Yes.
And it's about time we did as well.
I would just draw also a thread between your last segment as well, Carl, and say about when you look at these people from California, right, the Mexicans who are basically in open rebellion, even there you'd think, wow, just screaming rebellion from California, from inside America itself. That sounds like that's a ballsy move, right? No, it's not.
I wouldn't think of doing it.
No, but they do, because they actually feel that the state of California protects them.
Well, Newsom took ownership of it.
Right,
our people. Trump represents, finally, a modern liberal, or no, not liberal, but a modern state that is actually working in the interests of the majority people for the first time in decades.
Exactly. Whereas in this case, it's a total inversion of that paradigm. This is the people who do actually have a right to the land, bravely standing up to their own government.
Well, I was about to raise that point. Here we have a two-tier approach by the states, both in terms of the way that we defend or oppose the opposition here. In California, they're defending those who are taking over the land and saying it's their own, or indeed belonging to Mexico. But in Ballymena, they're attacking the people who belong to land, who live there, for those who are coming in to take it over. And so what we've got here is the question is, what is in the sense, what's in the brains of these individuals? What is in their minds that they think that there's no difference between this, that we can't see it, that we can't see the two-tier justice or
Unfortunately,
injustice?
it's a much longer conversation that we just don't have time.
It is.
So we'll have to come back to that another time.
All right, then. Well, I'll just go through some of the comments here. So it says, Doomscroller Diogenes says, I'm from Northern Ireland. Migrants come here because housing is cheaper than Britain, but they have no idea what they're getting into. We are a fragmented, volatile polity that they will never understand.
Just Logan, sorry for missing you. It says also troubles in Ireland again. At this point, just bring back the empire already. Honestly, the argument for the empire has never been stronger. Frankly, things were better when Britain was in charge of everything.
The argument for the empire never went away.
No, I agree. But the evidence of what happens when we're not there, well, I mean, it's not going great, is it?
No.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.